Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum dear students. I am Mr. Kadim Khan and I am a lecturer in the Institute of Computing, Kuwait University of Science and Technology. Today we will take lecture number 18 of the subject of software quality engineering, in which we are going to discuss the software testing for software quality assurance. And here the subtopic is high level software testing. Dear students, here we will define the different high level software testing which are very much practical and also widely used. This is the discussion agenda. It contains the topics of the integration testing methods, then user interface testing, dialog boxes, examples in the user interface testing, then cognitive walkthroughs, validation testing, system testing, object-oriented testing, and we have also the IEEE 829 standards for software testing documentations. And also we have the IEEE 829 format for the test plan, and we will discuss different contents of this test plan, and at the end we have the reality check. Now in the previous lectures we have thoroughly discussed the unit testing. Now we will continue and we will discuss the more testing strategies here: integration testing, user interface testing, validation testing, and system testing, and so on. So we will discuss all these in our today's lecture. Now, what is the integration testing? As this diagram depicts, that the sub-level components are integrated with each other to make the higher level components. For example, F and G components are integrated to make the B components. Similarly, B, C, D, E are integrated with each other to develop the final system. So here, each of these modules which are shown here in this application control flow charts are finally passed unit testing standards. So each and everyone must have passed the unit testing standards. So then we have to integrate each other, and then we will also again test the P, so that the integration of F and G are properly done or not here. So we have to make sure that the integration is quite working. Then we have to test the system again. It is exactly like that. For example, this is the database component and this is the front end or GUI components. And when the database is integrated with the GUI, then we have to retest the systems again. So that is called integration testing. And when all the components are integrated with our final front end, then we will test the front end again, and this is called the integration testing. Now there are multiple techniques or methods for the integration testing. For example, top-down integration testing. In top-down integration testing, we will test the top-level components first in the system. Although the top-level components will be the stubs. The stubs are certain dummy modules which are incomplete modules. So automatically when the bottom level components are not ready and they are not working properly, then using the stubs method we can test the top level components. So starting from the top and then going towards the bottom, then that is called the top down testing. Similarly, the bottom up testings, here we will perform the drivers using the bottom up testing. In the drivers we will use different test techniques to conduct the bottom up testing. So here the drivers are the testing methodologies used to create the bottom up testing. So in the bottom up testing we use different drivers. Basically the drivers are the temporary modules that act as the original modules, and these temporary modules give us the exact output as like the original module. So because in the bottom up testing we do not have the top components, so that's why we use the driver instead of the original top components, but they must be similar as like the original modules. Next one is depth first testing. Depth first testing, we first start from the depth and then goes and scans the upper components. So the depth components are first tested and then they are integrated with the next level depth components and so on, and the testing is performed here in terms of different integration. Next one is the sandwich test. Sandwich is also one type of integration test in which we test different components that they act as a ingredients of the sandwich, so that different components make one bigger function. So that's why that act as like the sandwich, and we perform that testing together. So that is called the sandwich. Okay, all these are the form of the regression test. Regression test is conducted when we want to update or maintain the software, and after maintenance, when there are a lot of changes occur in the software, then we retest the system, and that type of test is called regression test. Now, also we have the user interface testing. User interface testing is certain test which is based on the GUI. We test here the GUI of the system, that whether that GUI is user friendly, whether that GUI is easy to be used, as is there certain shortcuts available. So here the user interface validation is performed, and also user interface evaluation is performed here. So in the user interface validation, the paper prototypes made earlier are great. So first we will validate that this interface is according to the purpose of the user, and it is according to the expectation. So here we will create the paper prototypes of the system, and that's paper prototypes properly evaluated or validated from the end users, and then that the final software interface is then created. And in the user interface evaluations test, the expert and heuristic evaluation is performed here. The experts are the people who are experts are professional in the software engineering, and they perform the testing. It is also called heuristic evaluation. Heuristics means that is based on some certain physiologic, or it is based on artificial intelligence techniques, that if there is certain, for example, a test which creates the stress on the mind of the users while using the software, then here we will read the mind of the end users, and then the heuristic evaluation will be performed here, that how much stress that particular software creates on the user mind. And also we have the label testing. Label testing means that here we will utilize different labeling or strings or any information on the text information on the graphical user interface, and that graphical user interface will be tested based on the information available on that GUI. Now, also in the user interface test, we have user interface testing is cognitive walkthroughs, usability test, and random testing. In the cognitive walkthrough, the system is walked through by different experts, and cognitive means that different mental stress and mental hard work is measured here. So if the system creates a lot of hard work for the users, then that means that this system is not user friendly. So the system is walked through by different experts, and different experts cognitively test the systems. Next one is usability testing. Usability testing is according to the software requirement specification documents, that whether it fulfills all the usability criteria that is already defined in the SRS or not. Next one is the random testing. In the random testings, we use perform the random click events and the mouse events with the GUI. So that is the automated and random keys and mouse presses, and then we test the system based on that particular events that occurs with the software systems. Now you can see that this is the dialog box. This is very friendly dialog box. For example, this is the label, and there is the certain icons which represents the information that we want to read from the user. Also, there are two buttons, yes and no. Yes is the green button, while no is the red button. No is the red button because there is some alerts behind when no button is clicked, while yes is the safe button. That's why its text is green. Also, there is some title of this dialog box: delete all records. If you want to delete all the record, then click on yes, otherwise click on no. So this is very much best dialogs box. Also we have another dialogs box that, for example, if a user want to provide some feedback here, so don't ask me this again. So when the user click on this checkbox and then click on OK, then this message will not appear again. So For example, if user is sure that he or she wants to not he or she wants that this message should not happen again, so then why they will check on this checkbox. Similarly, we have another dialog box, that's who is where. So here, if I'm in, I will click in. If I'm out, so I will click out. So automatically out is clicked. So that's why you can see that this is little bit inside and this one is engraved outside. So that means out button is click. Also, there is another dialogues. You can see Microsoft Developer Studio, and you can see that there is a big text or a big label over the message box. But this reading this big message is takes a lot of time. While you can see that this takes less amount of times. So that's why it should be very much concise and very much user friendly. So there is two button, yes and no. Similarly, this buttons, this is another that is message box. You can see that it has one label here and second labels here. So there are two different labels that are differentiated from empty lines here, and this is the message are the icons here. So this is a very good example of the message box, which is very much user friendly. Similarly, this is another very much important user-friendly interface that, for example, recording phase CD created successfully, and you can see the progress bar here. So it also shows the progress bar. So that is another usability test that it is user-friendly in the user-friendly environment. There are three buttons: OK, cancel, and delay. Well, during the recording, you cannot cancel, but you can click OK when the recording has been completed. And also, we can see the detail, and there is also the CD icons, which represent that the purpose of the message here. Now, cognitive walkthrough is a certain AI-based or intelligent-based walkthrough which reviews the systems. So here we use the graphical user interface test for the cognitive walkthrough. So here the participants may be real end users who will test the systems, sits at the keyboard and perform the task. So the real user will use the keyboard and then he or she will perform the functions here. Next one is the evaluator. Evaluator is the tester who will test the system. It takes notes and asks questions, mostly quiet. So that means that the evaluator will prepare certain notes and ask questions about the user interface, and it will be mostly quietly. Quietly means that when he or she will takes notes and then ask the questions. So during the testing purpose, during the testing session, the evaluator cannot interfere. So the evaluator will be mostly quiet, and the developer is the person who developed the system. So probably hidden or watches the video. So the developer will just watch the video, or he or she will not be aware in that environment where the real end user will test the system. Now, results of this cognitive walkthrough is quite effective. That means effectiveness is very much important. So then, will the user associate the next action with the appropriate interface controls? So what will be the user priority for the next actions, that what he or she wants the next action should be? Will the user notice an action is available? Then when the user will see that whether this action are the events that is available for his operation or not. If the correct action is performed, will the user see the progress is being made towards the solution of the task? So when the user will click on the particular event, then the event will start and the progress about the functionality will also should also be displayed, and whether it is going toward the successful transaction or unsuccessful transaction. So all these information must be presented in the user interface. Next testing is validation test. Validation test is the test which is performed to validate the systems. So we use two different tests. alpha test and beta test. Basically, validation means that whether all the functionalities are valid and they are according to the expectation of the user. Now, alpha test is the test which is conducted by the programmer or by the developers itself, while the beta test is conducted by the beta version of the user. That is incomplete version, but that might be the candidate version of the system. So here the community perform the beta test. The community may be the expert people or maybe anyone user from all over the world. So we provide the beta version of the software to those people and then they gives us the feedback. Next one is the system testing. System testing is the test which is conducted when the system is ready for us and thoroughly the system is using the software and hardware. So when the system is completely developed, then the system testing is performed here. Here we will perform the recovery test. If there is certain problems or certain defects occurring in the system, then we will perform the recovery test, that whether the system is recovering from the crash or from the loss. Then next one is security test. Security test is conducted for the unwanted users or unwanted attackers. So if the system is vulnerable for the security, then we will also perform the security test in which we test that there should be a strong algorithms which will encrypt or decrypt the data. Also there should be security checks or all the privileges of the system. So use software to analyze the source code for sake of buffer overflow or attacks at the system. Next one is the stress testing. Stress testing is conducted to monitor the performance of the system. When we put a lot of stress over the system, that whether the system is continuously working or not in the environment of a huge stress. For example, if we are going to develop the email or network based system and there are a lot of users that are simultaneously connecting with our system, and then we will test the system that whether still the system is providing the functionality or not, then the stress testing will be conducted. Also we have the performance testing. Performance is means that the to test the execution speed or execution time of the system, that whether it performs required functionality in the per unit timing, then we will perform the performance testing. Next one is the object-oriented testing. In object-oriented test, we test the system based on object-oriented techniques. So here, all different object-oriented techniques are used here to perform the object-oriented testing. And it is also a very difficult because there are still some languages which are not object-oriented. So only it can be conducted for object-oriented system which are based on object-oriented programming. So it contains inheritance of the all function, that is that there is the inheritance and all the function, and inheritance is working properly, that is the child is accessing the parents classes function and data members properly. Inheritance of the data is conducted to ensure to look that whether the data is shared among its child classes or all the children are accessing the shared data. And abstract class inheritance is also conducted to monitor that this class is abstract, so that it can in fact share different function and data to another classes, but it cannot be inherited. Testing the design is much more important because the code level is very difficult to test. So we need to to test the design. In object oriented testing, we are focusing on UML based testing, where we have to test the system based on different UML diagrams, for example, class diagram, object diagram, sequence diagram, interaction diagram, and component diagrams. So we will test the system based on these different UML diagrams. Then that is called the object-oriented testing, because coding testing is very much difficult as compared to test the UML diagrams here. Testing should be aimed at the class, not the module. The module is bigger than the class. That may be more classes in the module. Maybe one class or more than one classes in the modules. So we should test the classes here, not the module, because class testing is thorough testing, while module testing is not so much thorough testing. When we test the individual classes, that all the parent and child classes, all the functions and data members in the classes, then that is called the class testing. Because the operation of the module are probably depends on how it's inherited from the classes. So that's why class test is much important than the module testing. Now we also have the test plans here. In the test plans, we will in fact investigate that who is responsible for testing, what should be tested, when this test will be performed, and where it will be performed, and how we can perform this test. So for this purpose, proper planning is required here, and that is the glue that it holds all together. So that is the tester and the developers. So test plan is in fact the relationship among different stakeholders of the system. Now, this is the IEEE 829 standards for uh, software test documentation. There are different uh, portion of this documentation. There are 8 different types of testing documents in the IEEE 829 standards documents. First, we will create the test plan. Then we will create the test design specification documents, expected result, pass, failed criteria. Here we will define that different criteria of the passed and failed testing. Then we have test case specification. Here we will identify all test cases with respect to their data. So test data and test cases will be prepared here, and we will run these test cases so that the system quality should be monitored. Next, we have test procedure specification, that how to run each test. Here we will specify each and every procedure. If the testing is automated, then we will use certain tools and technologies for automated testing. For example, JUnit is a tool which is used to perform the automated testing. So here we will specify the complete procedure of using the JUnit components for the Java testing. Test items transmitted report. Here we will in fact create a report that the component have progressed from one stage of testing to the next stage. So whether the testing has been successfully traced and all the defects in the system has been recovered or not. So here the test item transmitter report will identify that when the components have been progressed from one stage of the testing to the next stage, then the test item transmitter report contain all these information. Next one is the test log. Test log is the backlog which is automatically created to perform the to monitor the testing. Next is 10 incidents reports. 10 incident reports means that when a certain test is failed due to certain incident, then we should also need to report that failed test. So for any test that failed, the actual versus expected results are actually documented here. And then at the end we have test summary report, which is prepared by the management or the manager of the software engineering, and that contains that summary of the overall testing. This is the test documents. It contains 19 different subsections. Here's the test plans contains the test plan identifiers. Test plan identifier means that here we will identify that different plans that will be required to perform the testing. Next we have the references. References means that different hardware, software and other resource references that we have used in our test, and other documents references will be provided here. We have an introduction which defines the purpose of the testing. Then test items. Test item means different function that will be required to test. Then we have the software risk issues. If there are certain risks that are in the software, we will document all these risk issues here in this section. Feature to be tested. Here we will identify the different features, that is the functionality of the system that will be required to test. Then we have feature not to be tested. Those features which will not be required to test because they may be extra feature, or it will in fact be just wastage of resources. So that's why we will not test these features. Then we will approaches used to perform the testing. Approaches are different methodologies and techniques used to perform the testing. Then we have the item pass failed criteria, that what criteria will be used that the item is passed or failed for that particular testing. We have suspension criteria and resumption requirements, that whether we want to suspend the test or we want to resume the test. Here we have also certain criteria, and these criteria will be documented here in this section. Next is test deliverables. Test deliverables are the outcomes of the tested, that what we have done and what is the results of the testing. Next we have remaining test tasks. All these tasks which are remained, and so far how much are conducted, and so far how many tasks are remained. So there we will document all these tasks here. And next we have environmental needs. Environmental means that different resources required for testing. That will be the environmental needs of for this testing. Next one will be the staffing and training needs. Different peoples that we will be required to perform the testing and their trainings, because testing is a special technique in software engineering. So that's why good training is required here. If the testers fail to test the system properly, then the whole blame will be on his or on her side. Responsibilities means different sort of the activities, and the people will require people those required for conducting these activity. Next one is the schedule, that is the time required to perform the testing. Next one, planning risk and contingency. Here we will plan all the risks and their contingency. Contingencies are the effects of the risk. Then when these risks will occur, that can seriously damage the project, and it will in fact increase the cost, or will decrease the quality, and also will increase the schedule of the project. Next one is the approval. Approval means that the approval that are taken from the high responsible peoples. So here we will specify all these approval which are required to perform this test. And at the end we have the glossaries. So the glossary contains different terms and definitions which will be useful to conduct the test. Now, what is the reality? Reality means that different statistics which must we have to notice well when we conduct the test. So when is more testing is not cost effective. So when more testing we perform, that is not cost effective. For example, this is the cost, and this is software quality assurance activities. When we perform quality assurance activities, for example, cost of software quality assurance, when they are increasing, so means that when we perform more quality assurance increases, automatically our cost will also increase here. The cost will be the budget of the project. And well, when the software becomes fails, so that means when your quality assurance activities become lesser and lesser, that is the less quality assurance, then automatically the cost of the failure will also be decreased. So that means that the cost of failure is is in fact related with the software quality assurance activities. And when in fact the quality, this is the optimal quality level, so that we have to make this things balance. So software quality and failure cost should be balanced. That means that, for example, at this point, when we have the cost of software quality assurance and also the cost of failures. So for example, if the system fails, then it will be costly project. And because it has been failed, because we should have to invest more in software quality, so that we identify different failure reasons of the project. So that is the statistics here, which shows that we should be nominal, we should be in the medium, so that we should identify the different defects in the system, and the good quality product should be created. So dear student, this is the end of the lectures. If you have questions, so you can ask these questions through the email. My email is m.kadim@kust.edu.pk. I will wait for your questions and will respond immediately as soon as I get. So also these are two different books references. You can study this book for these current topics, so that you get the good knowledge. Thank you very much.